All right. Oop. Let's put that back up. Testing. Testing, everybody. Testing. Anybody out there? I know it's cold, but there's got to be somebody out there. All right. We do have people out there. A little low. Let me turn this up then. Testing. Hello. McFly. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It is February 2nd. Let's see if we can get this to focus. It is going to be minus 43 tonight, if you can believe that. We're nowhere near the Arctic, but you would think so. In fact, this time last year, I was in the Arctic, and it was only minus 50. Only minus 50. So we're about to hit Arctic temperatures here. So what better thing to do when it's freezing cold than to come back with the return of Custodes Tactica. Yes, it is back. It is episode 69, and it has been quite some time. I think almost a year, or probably over a year, since we did episode 68. And that was right after the last Can Hammer team, or right before the Can Hammer team. So it has been almost a year. And I decided to stick with the continuing numbers for a couple of reasons. First of all, 69. And then also, we are just continuing on as if nothing happened. Because really, not very much has happened for what I can tell over the number of months that I've not done this and not played the game, except for a few models being released, some books coming out, and some tournaments. FAQs and data slates, but really not too much has changed. So we're going to talk about what has changed more recently, though, so my timing is good, and what better thing for timing than 69. So we're going to carry on with episode 69 tonight. And so tonight, what we're going to do is just catch up with what's changed recently and talk about what I'm doing right now with Custodes. And just a catch-up show, nothing too crazy, and just to kind of get back into the swing. Big shout out to Sean Stryker, who's in the chat, one of our loyal members, and first in the chat, and Thurgood as well. Welcome back, and thank you everybody for watching and sticking with us. If you're still here from before, thank you very much for sticking with us. If you're new, and thank you very much for joining us. Now, I will have a big shout out to everybody who's on the Discord, which is right here. That's the Can Hammer Discord, where the Custodes Discord lives. And I gotta say, I did not use the Discord much while I was on break. And that place is booming and thriving without me, which is amazing. It has a life of its own. We have some moderators in there, and the community in there is as live and well as it was when I left, and it is in good shape. Everybody is still friendly. It's a very helpful place as far as I can tell, and everything is as I left it, and maybe even better. New people coming all the time. It's a thriving community. Lots of people have said, either in the chat or to me privately, that it's the nicest and most helpful Discord that they're a part of, which is really great to hear, because a lot of Discords are quite frankly shit. So I'm glad that that's continued to thrive in my absence, and continues to do very well. So do join it if you're wondering to join our community. It's right there. I hope that link still works. That's the same link from like last year. Anyway, if you need the link, just let me know. We can post it up. I'll probably be able to post it in the chat later. If you want to chat, ask questions, do feel free to chat. There is no fee or cost or payment required to ask questions. So just ask away. The chat is open. All right. So tonight, let's talk something other than polar vortex. Okay. So some of the changes that have happened. So obviously, right before LVO, as a New Year gift to everybody, the new Arcs of Omen book came out, which of course is like the new missions for this year, and basically changed a bunch of things. And it updated the secondaries, kind of really not really changed the missions very much, changed the detachment structures, and we saw a data slate update. We saw some points changes. So we're going to go over all these things. Then we're going to talk about some of the trends that I'm seeing these days in Custodes, from watching online and also from chatting in the Discord and watching, kind of seeing what people are doing, what people are posting, what people are trying in local tournaments, these sort of things. And we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about the list that I'm currently throwing around, which you may be able to see as soon as this Thursday coming up. So like 6 days from now. 1 week from now on our next live 40K stream, which is 1 week from tonight live. So we will see how that goes. Okay, so first thing I guess we'll talk about is this Arcs of Omen, which of course is the big story precursor to 10th edition, which is coming out in June. I'll let you know. It's no big secret. Everybody knows that. But 10th edition, right around the corner. Nobody really knows what it's going to involve, and this is the big story arc leading up to it. And one of the big things that Arcs of Omen changed was the detachment structure. So there's a new Arcs of Omen detachment, which everybody has to use, and it's basically a free-for-all. So it's like you can run whatever you want. You can pick whatever slot you want 3 of, and then have, 3 of that slot, and then have a bunch of other things. So Gone is and it's free. So Gone is to patrol and all those kind of things. Now you just have this one attachment, and you can basically do whatever you want. And it's actually been a benefit for us because now we don't necessarily have to pay CP tax for not running troops. And now we don't have to stick 1 guard unit in just so we can run a patrol. We can run 6 elites, no problem. 6 fast attack, no problem. It's super flexible. We can even break I believe you can spend a CP to break the shield captain limit. I'd have to check the wording on that. But anyway, you wouldn't want to anyway. Now you can even just run 1 HQ. So like it's really super flex, and it kind of just eliminated all of those restrictions that we'd run into and trying to work around that with the small number of units that we have in our army. So, I mean, that's good. It's good for everybody, and because we're limited to 6 CP to start with now, and we have to pay for all our warlord traits and relics and everything, it was nice not to have to pay 3 CP for a detachment. So I think that change was inevitable, and maybe a hint of what's to come in 10th, where it's going to be pretty free. Who knows? No idea. But yeah, so the Arcs of Omen detachment does help us because now we don't have these taxes to pay for taking the things we want. So that's resulted in some free list building, no longer restricted, and that's really helped us make the best use of our traits and things like that. So I think that's pretty good. Secondaries. So some secondaries got changed. Some of the kind of default book secondaries got changed. Our secondaries did not get changed, which was a little bit disappointing. Our secondaries are all basically shitty versions of the pre-existing book secondaries, and none of them really got changed. Before the book came out, there was a rumor that it was going to get changed. So Auric Mortalis was going to go to, you have to kill that unit in any way, not just in combat. And I can't remember, they were supposed to get changed, the rumor was, but when the book finally came out, unfortunately none of our secondaries were changed. So that's too bad. But a couple of things really helped us achieve the current book secondaries. One is that we, the data slate removed our OBSEC nerf. So now everything except for characters and bikes and like vehicles and stuff. So all our infantry have OBSEC back. And most importantly, that includes elites like Wardens and Terminators, Alaris Terminators. And that includes Venatari. So Venatari really took a hit when they lost OBSEC because they were our fastest OBSEC units, flying infantry OBSEC. It's like the ultimate collection of keywords. And so they took a hit, so they got that back, which is great because Venatari are back on the menu. And so that makes it much easier for us to compete with primary and a whole bunch of other secondaries, including behind enemy lines and things like that. So the return of OBSEC to infantry is obviously huge, and it was just a straight axing of that previous nerf, which is great. So I don't think anybody can complain about that. Obviously, it'd be nice to get OBSEC bikes back, but that's probably not going to happen at any time. So we'll be happy with our 12-inch fly infantry boys. So that was a big change in the data slate and how it kind of syncs in with some of the secondaries. Otherwise, I mean, the secondaries didn't change too much. Little tweaks here and there, but nothing too crazy. The game basically kind of stayed pretty similar because none of the missions really drastically changed. And so overall, the game stayed pretty similar. The other big change was that anything you put into strategic reserve is free now, so you don't have to pay for that anymore. I guess that helps people who were running the big flyers, because the restriction is still there that if you overlap or whatever, you can't do anything the first turn, so you can just stick it into strategic reserve for free and it can come in from the side. So I guess that's an okay change. Probably helps some armies more than it helps us. But you know, there may be some situations where you want to kind of strategic reserve some guys to come in off the side, so you can use that per game as you need, because it's free. Of course, we also have the deep strike stratagem that we can use, and a lot of our guys like Venatari and Terminators already deep strike, so you know, we have a lot of flexibility in terms of deployment. And of course, we still have things like Custodes Mark, which lets us redeploy. So we are actually a pretty flexible army when it comes to deployment and coming in, and that's good. With Venatari getting offset back, of course, that makes pre-game move emissaries quite quite tempting. That moving a unit up 12 inches at the beginning of the game, OBSEC, good for banners, good for primary, good for all sorts of things. And then with the Custodes Mark, and so there's a nice combo of pre-game moving there. And pre-game moving is usually pretty good. So if you're playing emissaries, that is definitely a good thing, and definitely a good reason to play emissaries, that forward mobility and pre-game move. Okay. The other thing that really helped us in the data slate was all our stratagem restrictions got axed. So all our defensive buffs like Emperor's Old Spice, all those stratagems that went once per game are now back, and we can use them as often as we like. Which, to be honest, I feel like that was a overly heavy nerf to those stratagems in the first place. That was really the only reason that we were even like surviving, was because we could freely use those. And you know, it also didn't make sense with the changes to CP generation it was not necessary anymore, because you, with all paying for all your stuff now and only starting with 6, you can't spam that stuff very heavily. So I think to remove that restriction was fine, and it has been nice to be able to use them whenever you need to again. So that was a good change, obviously. So basically, we lost all of our big data slate nerfs that we got hit with when we were like rocking the meta back, last year, probably shortly before I stopped. So that's good. It's all been reversed, and there's nothing bad to say about that. Price Scope Lover, welcome. I don't think I've seen you before, so welcome to the channel. Your question: bikes losing strats makes them not competitive or still okay? So bikes losing strats, meaning that they can't use transhuman, arcane genetic alchemy, so it does make them a little bit easier to kill. Of course, bikes also have more wounds. They still got the 4-up, and you can still hide them, and they still are one of few sources of shooting anti-vehicle. Oh, Price Scope Lover is Protocultures. Cool. Shout out to Protocultures, by the way. He was putting out amazing videos last year, and then kind of like me, kind of like seems like kind of stopped. So hopefully you're going to continue doing that because his videos were cool, and so hopefully he'll keep doing that. But so I think bikes still have a role. I think they're still fast. Obviously, still our fastest unit, and they're still pretty tough. If you're running Shadow Keepers, bikes can be pretty tough in Shadow Keeper still, and they still rock the Melta, which we don't have a lot of sources of. I mean, we got the dudes with the Melta spears, and they pay way too many points for those spears, and they're not that mobile. And we got tanks with the blades, which have a low number of shots. So I still think bikes are good if you're going all mobility. They're good in emissaries. They're good in emperors because of the Melta shots. So I think bikes are still good. I think people are just trying to try other things right now, which we'll talk about at the end when we talk about my list. But there's a lot of cool things to try out right now. The meta is kind of open. And with all the chaos stuff coming out as well, who knows what we're going to need. I think they're a good tool that we can use, and bikes is one of those tools. Definitely leaning into AI for them is great because they can be your pregame move. Before I stopped, pregame moving EI unit of bikes with the shield captain zooming up after them like that, flanking on down one side, that was very strong. Melta turn one, especially with either Salvis for extra range, or what's the one with the advance and shoot? Can't remember. Of course, bikes can fall back and shoot, and now if you're running bikes with Solar Watch, for example, they can fall back and charge. You can't discount the fact that they are pretty tough and they are fast and they have Melta. There's still a lot of points, but they've always been. It's never changed about bikes. Patrick D, welcome back. So glad you're back. Thank you very much. You walked away as well, and the AOC era, yes. And waiting for the Guard Codex, which you have been rewarded. Okay, so that was a big change. The strat restrictions all gone, which is great. Didn't need them anymore with the state of the game. It was not necessary, so I'm glad that they removed that. So that's cool. Okay. Other question, how much do you think the free strategic reserve hurts us because we suck at screening? I don't know. I can't answer that. I haven't played enough games yet where people are strategic reserving things against me. The people I've seen playing so far, they're just pushing everything in your face. So it hasn't seemed to be too much of a problem, but we'll see. Okay. And obviously, as Patrick mentioned, Armor of Contempt is gone. That was from what I heard, because I stopped at around that time when that came out, but it made shooting power armor really, really oppressively bad. And I'm glad it's gone by the sounds of it, although I never experienced the pain of that. But I can empathize because I know what it would have felt like. So obviously that makes everybody not having Armor of Contempt, every army that was dealing with Armor of Contempt makes them all better. And I think it really put a dent into Sisters from what I hear. But they're back to being T3, 3-up save girls. But that obviously helps us. It made a lot of all our -1 shooting useless, basically. So now -1 shooting is back on the table. -1, 2 damage. It's a nice profile that we basically get for free. So, it definitely helps just our basic kind of Auric, Auric weapons and stuff like that. So, loss of AOC obviously changed everything for everyone else who didn't have it. So, it's good. Okay. So those were kind of the major changes in the data slate. In terms of our current trends, so these are some things that I've seen on stream, on videos, watching, and in the Discord. I tried to kind of keep track of LVO, but to be honest, LVO was playing old, so kind of not really. We'll see in the next month how it kind of all shakes out. And then, of course, we've got World Eaters who look like they might be pretty good. Angron, I suspect, is going to be a problem, maybe. What I don't want to see again is like stupid like triple Primarch lists. I don't even know if you're allowed to do that detachment wise, but I really hate seeing those kind of lists. It's bad enough having knights. I don't want to see these stupid triple big thing lists. Like it always pops up now and again over the years. Stupid triple Bane Blades and Bash Brothers and all these stupid things. I hope we don't see any of that stupidity. But anyway. Okay, so seems to me that Empress Chosen is still people's favorite, but people are branching out into the other shield hosts. And other than maybe Aquilin's shield, all the other shield hosts definitely have play. And I guess your pick will really depend on how you want to play and or what you end up playing against most. So yeah, obviously World Eaters is not going to be psychic heavy because by definition, World Eaters, no psychic. But, if, and Guard's not particularly psychic heavy. So, I don't think we're going to see too much of that. But, Emperor's Chosen is always good just because of the rerolls and the flexibility to switch to anything else. That's always going to be good. And then, Shadowkeep is good. I finally managed to play my first game of Shadowkeep the other day, and -1 attack really takes the sting out. Characters are basically dead if you get a chance to hit them. -1 strength. So Shadowkeepers is good. Emissary is obviously good with the ignoring modifiers. Super good, especially with like a whole bunch of Sagittarium. That's way better now with loss of AOCs, the kind of 9-shot, the 3-shot profile on the SAG guns, obviously way better now without AOC. And then again with emissaries, super good. Always fight first, always good. Pre-game move. I mean, they got emissaries just got a lot of stuff, right? So I think they're a great shield host. And then Solar Watch, which we'll talk about when I talk about my list, which I'm going to be trying out, has a lot of cool things going for it. Dread Host, I know that Nick on the Discord has been having great success running big bricks of things with Dread Host, exploding sixes, and deep striking, double fist Bertha. So he's been having a lot of fun playing Dread Host, and that probably has some play. And Aquiline Shield, like army-wide heroic up to 6 inches, that's a decent threat range. The problem is it's avoidable. The other trait is okay, and then all the other stuff is not great. I mean, half damage, sure, but so I think Aquiline Shield is still the weakest trait that we have, the weakest shield host, but all the other ones have play. So I think Empress Chosen definitely still the favorite, but it's definitely a good time to try other things. So I think Emissaries is great play with Venatari getting offset back. A fast list, you can run Venatari and bikes and then have like a little bit of a force pushing up the middle. It could really be a fast army. And then you got a large dropping down for behind enemy lines. And then you have fast elements pushing forward or flanking. I think that's a nice list. It's super fun to play. When I was playing Emissaries, I loved that play style. It wasn't the typical kind of Custodes stand in the middle, grind forward slowly kind of play style. It was a real mobile, interactive play style, and really kind of changed how people would approach games against us. The fights last. It was a really nice way in play. You got this brick of sags going up with ignoring modifiers. You can even make them ignore cover with the banner. Then you have flanking fast elements. And then you have maybe a couple guys deep striking in the back. It was a nice, good way to play. We talked about Dread Host already. So the other thing we're doing is Solar Watch, which I'll talk about in a second. So one thing that's thankfully gone is, and this is when I say that I was away for a while, it doesn't look like really much changed, was that it seems like I was keeping tabs on things as I was away, and it looks like that whole time was just dreads. That's how it was when I left, and it's basically what it was like until very recently. Dreadnoughts. Maybe people started playing the Contemptor Dread, Atlas, Galactus, which one's better, which one's not better, who knows, played them all. There was just Dreadnought, spammy lists, and that was very boring, and it seemed like it was like that for the whole time I was away. So now I not really seen a lot of dreads in lists. Maybe a couple or one or two here and there, but definitely not the 3, 6, 9 dreadnought lists that we were seeing for a very long time. For a while, we were seeing a lot of Caladius tanks, maybe like 1 or 2 Caladius tanks. I hadn't seen a lot of triple Caladius, but maybe that's changing a little bit now. But Caladius kind of made a little comeback there as a mobile shooty platform. But maybe with Marines coming back out, a lot of heavy weapons, Melta, Laz, maybe the Caladius is a little bit of a liability. But yeah, and same with Dreads, to be honest. Like, you know, you're getting, when I played Phil and he had like 100,000 free Inferno pistols, like, that vehicle's gone, like, pretty easily. Jason C, welcome. Okay, so thankfully we've seen the end of Dreadnought spam, although I would keep them in your closet for a future rough time. They always seem to be the thing that kind of keeps us going during rough times. But now we got tons of play in all sorts of units. And speaking of units that are seeing a lot of play right now, Wardens. So Wardens have seen a lot of play, not least of which that dude won like a big tournament with like 20 Wardens. Chris is telling me to play 30 Wardens. Well, it's actually 27 Wardens, but like 30 Wardens. Why the Wardens? So Wardens have always been our much maligned unit that's stuck between the troops and the Terminators. In between, not quite as good as either, but kind of not super good at anything else. And they've been stuck. But now they've gotten as cheap as a Shield Guardian. Now the troop thing doesn't really matter so much anymore. They have OBSEC back. And so now they've gotten into a very interesting point. And actually, other than Guardians, they're one of our few units that can go into a big brick, which is kind of a trend right now, big bricks, which we'll talk about in a second. So I think that's why we're seeing Wardens, but we're also seeing big Guardian bricks. There's a lot of experimenting right now with big bricks. It's hard to know exactly what that's a result of. Probably detachment changes, CP changes, the strat restriction lifting, definitely. Definitely. I mean, big brick was not doable when you can only use those strats one time. Like, that's probably the main reason people are bringing out big bricks again. And then probably there's some meta influences too. But now we're seeing those big bricks and it's Guardians or Wardens because, you know, a big brick of Terminator is not that big and it's kind of expensive. So really that's what we're seeing because those are the two things that we can get big bricks in. And by big I mean like 8 to 10 dudes. I think you either go like 4 so that you still get some of your strats cheaper, and then if you lose one guy you're super cheap strat wise, CP wise, or you go big so you get efficiency for the CP that you spent. I think going from 5 to 7 is you're just spending more CP for not that much more efficiency or benefit. So I think if you're gonna run big brick, you might as well go big brick and go like 8 to 10. So yeah. So I think that's what we're seeing, whereas we had to retreat to an MSU style before because we had to hide, we didn't have the strats to use to protect things, and so now we can just put these bricks out there. So yeah, we've seen Warden and Guardian bricks doing okay, and yeah, the Guardians, you know, for the same points as the Shield Guardian, obviously they don't have the shield, but there's a lot of AP out there right now, so I'm not sure that the shield really matters too much. The 6-up Feel No Pain most of the time doesn't matter, but when you're getting hit by a lot of 3 damage, even making one of those really cuts the efficiency of 3 damage, like a lot. And occasionally you'll have a guy that survives a couple of hits, or they can survive, you know, a Melta shot that rolled low, or so, you know, that 6-up Feel No Pain does come in handy. Free daggers for everybody now, so that doesn't really matter. and they got the extra attack. So I mean, they definitely got their thing, and now they got OBSEC. I think that's that's definitely why we're seeing a lot of Wardens. I think probably Shield Brick, like 10 Shield Guardians, has played because it's hard to kill, and also in combat they got that -1 to hit strat, which is super nice. And then, I mean, I think 10 Spear Guardians would do fine too because they're cheaper, right? Like, they're just cheaper. That brick is like a cheap brick of 10 guys, and they'll be relatively hard to kill, and they'll hit harder than the shield dudes, and have better shooting. So, I think that's something people could mess around with too. Let's see. Proto says, which armies do I think gatekeep Custodes? I don't know if I can answer that question for you right now, Proto. Give me some time to play some games. You'd probably be better off answering that question than me. Like I said in the chat, you're asking the wrong guy right now. Okay, so Wardens, big bricks. Alaris. Okay, so it's been a while we've been seeing Alaris Terminators. Single Alaris. So since we were allowed to take one Alaris Terminator, the single Alaris has been a thing. And then since Behind Enemy Lines was kind of in its modern form. Because one dude, 60 points, I mean, that's a lot of points with one dude, but for us, it's like a normal price point. Dropping in needs some effort to take out small 5-man groups that are hanging at the back. Easy to fit a 40mm base almost anywhere. Hard to block that out. Scoring you points, I think, is very nice. And when you make a list in Custodes, you have 50, 60, 70 points left over. What are you going to do with it? Like, you can't do anything with that except for plop in a single Alaris Terminator. So I think single Alaris Terminators, probably 1 to 2, maybe 3. Again, if you got that 60 points, to really double down on harassment in the enemy zone as well as behind enemy lines, I think could be really good. So I think, that's why we're seeing a lot of lists pull out single Alaris. Just to give you that little bit of deep strike pressure, keep your opponent honest a little bit, and also because we have those points left over usually at the end of list building, which is just how our army is. Adrathic. Okay, so for a while, we were seeing a lot of people messing around with Adrathic. So there were Dreadnoughts, Achilles Dreadnoughts running double Adrathic. Sags obviously have Adrathic shots, and then we were seeing, even a very short period of time, Aquilon running Adrathics. And that was because, strength 5, that's good for anti-marines. -3, that's pretty good. And 3 damage, obviously, excellent. That even gets you 2 Funeral Pains. The problem that's always been that Adrathic just costs too many points. I mean, it made an Aquilon that much more expensive. It was great on Sags, but, low number of shots and low range. The Adrathic Spear is completely useless, just one shot. The Dick Bikes with the Adrathic, way too many points. Even on the Achilles, it made your Achilles quite a points investment. Almost like the same number of points as you would take for like a Cladius tank or something. So Adrathic just wasn't cutting it, and probably still doesn't cut it just because of how expensive it is. If it ever becomes a gun option that doesn't cost extra, we can talk. But low number of shots, extra points, strength 5, not super great, like invulns, and it's still not super compelling. But if it ever got a little bit of a buff up, okay. So Dark Angels are a problem. Yes, so I watched, you guys saw it on stream last time. Phil basically put like his entire Blood Angels army into like 10 Terminators and killed like I think he killed 4 or 5 over the course of like 2 turns. The slogan for that game was more than half. Like, he managed to kill like more than half the Terminators. Eventually, I think one turn he killed more than half of one Terminator, and that was an accomplishment. So those things are just crazy durable, which you could argue lore-wise, that's how Terminators are portrayed, right? And that entire First Company, Deathwing, they're just Terminators, and no other army really has that, right? Like, supposedly like Black Legion and just Aaron, whatever, but lore-wise, like, Terminator's supposed to come down and you're supposed to run for your lives, right? So that's kind of like that, but in the game, it's definitely oppressive. So that was fun. Definitely don't want to play into Deathwing bricks, but yeah, I mean, I guess if everybody's Terminators were like that, it'd be a bit more fair. But yeah, those are some hardy dudes. Okay, so my current list. So my current list is posted in the Discord. There's a whole channel on the Discord under the Custodes area that says Darren's current list, and that's where I put my list that I'll be playing, at some point. And so this list was based off the want to try new things, and try shield hosts that I never tried before, and also some of the things that we've been talking about, and now's the time to try. So this was my Solar Watch brick list. So basically Solar Watch. I got Trajan. It's hard to drop Trajan, man. He's always been good for me in games, never really fluffs it out. And so much flexibility with the katas, get the CP, not only the extra CP, which is rich because it pays for his own 2 warlord traits basically, but also just in terms of CP regen. I mean, heroic, like rerolls, although I wish his rerolls were a little bit more chapter mastery. But yeah, so I mean, it's hard to give up Trajan, and if he's 200 points or 180 points, it really doesn't matter for our army, the moving 5 points here and there for Trajan. So he's always been kind of somebody I found really hard to play without. So he's still in there. And then I had 2 bricks of 10 wardens. The initial version of my list actually had a brick of 10 shields and then 10 wardens. But I'm like, let's try this 20 warden idea. We can always literally just sub in 10 shields because it's the same points. And then now the detachments, it doesn't matter. So it has super flexibility. I can just swap them straight out. But we'll start with 20 wardens in 2 bricks of 10. And 2 units of 3 Venatari. So I still like to have my Venatari as mobile flanking units. They're just super good for that. You can always deep strike them if you have those options. So now I got up to 3... I have 3 single Alaris Terminators. It started off as 2, but then I got like the 60 points left at the end. So I'm like, okay. So I have 3 single Alaris Terminators. Worst comes to worst, you just stick one on your back home objective and just leave it there the whole game, so nobody else has to stand at the back. So if you have 3, that's a good way of just using 1. And then I have 2 units of Venatari, which I really love. And then I had a Vexilla in there. I think the Vexilla still has some play. Not only is he carrying the Sally Forth for me, which is the warlord trait that allows 1 unit to advance and charge, which is super important in this kind of brick list for mobility, but he's also going to be carrying the Castellan's Mark, which again, with big bricks, you want to be able to redeploy them if you need to, and you can kind of do some feints and things. And he's carrying the Magnifica, make the wardens a little bit harder to kill when it matters. He's not really expected to do anything else. I thought about throwing more traits on him, and I'm like, it's just kind of a waste of CP. And this CP, you're going to be spending more, this list, you're going to be spending more CP on your protective stratagems, so you want to start with as many CP as you can. So didn't actually put anything else on the Vexilla. And then I had enough points left over for a Blade Champ. So at this point, I was like, do I do double Vexilla with Imperious to make the wardens extra smacky? Or do I try a Blade Champ? Blade Champ, possibility of advancing charge. He's going to make all the charges extra, like +1. He's got the heroic. He's got she just smack around. And I haven't really had a chance to play the Blade Champ. So I've decided with that points that I had for a double Vexilla instead to go with the Blade Champ. And again, I'm saving the CP. I thought about putting, Peerless on him. I'm like, it's like a CP I could use to protect something else. So decide to just leave him blank and just go straight up Blade Champ, going up the middle with 20 wardens, sneaking through, getting that first charge on, making everyone's charges easier. So that was the idea with the Blade Champ instead of a double Vex. That was the switch. And then finally, I had some points left over, and at somebody's advice, I took some Witch Seekers just for ladies, probably to just stand at the back or to forward deploy onto an objective and maybe grab me some banners early. Who knows? To do something annoying and hopefully not die and just kind of be generally ignorable in a building somewhere the whole game. And of course, we had the points, and I'm like, I don't need a fourth solo Alaris. Should I run a unit of 2 Alaris and 2 unit singles? Meh, 2 Alaris is like, I tried that before. It was like, just as easily do with 1 as with 2. I'm definitely not going to spend CP to split 2 guys into 2 singles. So I already got singles, so I'm like, let's just run a unit of sisters. And basically, I had the points to run the sisters that have flamers and forward a scout move instead of just running bolter girls. And bolter girls are basically just fodder and useless. So at least they might kill something with those flamers. The other thing is, so, I went back and refreshed my memory of some of the sister stratagems, and some of them are really useful. If you get those girls in a forward, kind of a suicide kind of mode as your army hits another army. I mean, that creeping dread strat with the -1 to hit with any attack node, not even in combat. I mean, that's great. That's like literally what you were going to use to protect your shield dude. So giving a unit creeping dread would be a great CP to use. Obviously, there's some psychic protection from strats and from their presence. And so they do have a little bit of play for the small amount of points that you had left over anyway. So that's why they're in the list. And I really like this idea of Solar Watch. And I know people like Chris actually ran Solar Watch ages ago and with good success, because it just makes a slow army way more mobile. And I really like that. So I think we're going to see how this goes. When I played Shadowkeepers, it was good, but I wasn't super impressed by it. And I played a lot of EI and Emperor's Chosen, Emissaries and Emperor's Chosen in the past. So I haven't yet to play Dreadhost. That's my next thing to play is Dreadhost. But gonna try the Solar Watch first. So that's my current list, and you might see that on Thursday. Okay. So yeah, that list starts at 1995 points, and I start with 4 CP, so we'll go up to 5, 6 if I'm going second. So, I think that's pretty good. Okay, that is it. So let's go to the question channel. So, obviously, I just came back to the game. I have not played a lot of games, and I'm not super familiar with all the neats and tricks and things that people are running these days. So I will answer any questions that I can. Otherwise, I will defer to the experts in our Discord. If you have questions, you can ask all the experts that live in there, seemingly 24 hours a day. I don't think Battlejuice ever sleeps. He's literally there, Jeremiah, all the time, 24 hours a day, ready to answer your questions. So come on to Discord and you can talk to Jeremiah there. Okay. I'm going to go back a couple of shows because there was a bunch of questions back there before the board game show. No, that was about Marines. Okay, forget that. I don't want to answer questions about Marines. Okay, are 10-man size units better now, or does MSU still have more advantages? Well, I think we kind of covered that. I think there are reasons now to use big units, but I think you go really big or you stay MSU. I don't think either is better than the other. I think, as somebody pointed out earlier in the chat, it may depend on terrain if you can hide bigger units. So we play pretty, like you guys seen the stream, we have big pieces of terrain and lots of it. And so you can play big units on our terrain, but equally so, you can play small units that are very mobile. So, either way probably kind of works. Just play how you want. Thoughts on starting with units in reserves now that the game is so lethal? Yeah, so somebody asked today in the Discord, what do you do about all these, drop pods or the Stirring Guard and all these things coming down and just nuking things? Like, what can we do against that? We don't have the intercept stratagem anymore. And even when we did, it wasn't particularly useful, I found. Not like the stupid Eldar intercept that used to kill everything. So yeah, we don't really have a protection except to anticipate it, to hide in places with cover, try and cut lines of sight, and roll 4-ups. Vexilla, Vexilla, that kind of thing. Vexilla, cover, hide. That's the best you can do. If you know that they're deep striking heavy weapons for anti-vehicle and you got a tank in the back, like you can kind of put it at the back so they can't get within range. Like these are the usual tips to try and avoid deep striking like alpha. But to some extent we can't avoid that too much. We don't really have good screening. Back in the day when we had Loyal 32, that was a different kind of game back then, but not anymore. Okay. Melta Spear Bros. Yeah, I really want to like Melta Spear Bros as an alternative to Melta Bikes. But the range is so short and there are way more points. If they were just the same points as, say, Shield Guard, 50 points, maybe. But just walking up, yeah. So I played a few games with a unit of 5 Melta Bros way back in the day. And in a few of the games, they sat at the back and whatever deep struck in, they toasted. And even then, your characters are gone. You have 5 shots. You don't get the Melta thing. And then it's like you miss 1 or 2 of them. You're still like, you don't wound on like 1. And then it's just kind of shitty, So it's never good. And then in other games, there was one game where I put them all in a Land Raider. And then the Land Raider got toasted in my deployment zone. And then they foot slogged and did nothing the whole game. So I guess if you want to spend CP and you deep strike them, like they might do something. But then they're not getting rerolls. You really got to run them Emperor's Chosen if you're going to run them at all. So I don't know. I don't think it's worth it, to be honest, for Melta Bros. Yeah. Single shot. Yeah, they're a little overpriced, but they do the job, but they won't replace salvo bikes. Yeah, no, they definitely won't. Like that mobility is just too good, right? And yeah, salvos would definitely obviously help them. And as we said, EC for sure. I mean, you shouldn't run them if you're not running EC. You're just going to waste. It's like a waste. Yeah. Okay. Protocol just got a bunch of really good questions here. I'm not sure I'm going to answer most of them. How good are Armiger allies? I would not know because the whole premise of my channel is on playing pure Custodes. So no idea, and I will never be able to tell you. How do you tech versus Votan? So Votan came out while I was away, and I have not been able to play a game against Votan. So I don't know. The first time I get tabled by them, I'll report back to you guys. Has taking 4 deploy units changed in importance, and how good is it too? So we kind of talked about that when we talked about EI. How many SAGs are too many? I don't know. I think if you run EI, SAGs for sure. I think there's other compelling things we can try running now instead of SAGs if you're not playing EI. What terrain type do you most often play on? So yeah, we talked about terrain. And okay. Okay, so those are the only questions we have in the chat, and that is the show for tonight. So thank you very much, guys, for watching. Thank you for sticking by and supporting the channel, making the Discord such an amazing place to be, even in my absence. So that's been really gratifying to see. And thank you for following up. We were going to talk about Can-Hammer Team, but there's not really any updates this week, so we'll just skip that. And Tactica will hopefully be back with episode 70 in a couple of weeks, and hopefully we'll be getting a couple of games under my belt by then. The Thursday, so 1 week from today, next week, our big live 40K game, Thursday night. Of course, I suspect it's going to be me playing my Solar Watch list against Francois playing his tournament Iron Hands list, because he wants to practice for Stutter Snotling. So that's probably Thursday night next week. And there'll be another board game show coming up in the next week or two. And that's it. So thanks very much, guys, and see you later.